Lucy.
Hi, I'm Lucy Robbins, and welcome to Reality Therapy Corner. We meet here the fourth Tuesday of each month to discuss reality therapy, and we're happy for all of y'all to join in with us today. Each month we have a featured guest that selects the topic and leads us in a conversation about reality therapy and the topic. And today we're very fortunate to have with us Steve Holzapfel. Steve and I have been friends for a good while now, and Steve lives in Nashville and is city magistrate there. And he has 4 beautiful daughters, a lovely wife, and I've lost count on how many grandchildren.
8 grandchildren. 2
8 grandchildren. Okay. So Steve has been in my life since his first child came to Memphis to go to school and just needed an adult to know what's around. And that's when and how we met years ago. Yep. So I want to introduce you to Steve Holzapfel as our featured guest today. Steve, welcome.
All righty. Thank you. I apologize for not knowing how y'all normally do all this, but you've given some of my background.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, born and raised and live in Nashville. I'm 12th of 16 children, 11 girls, 4 boys, or four brothers rather than 11 sisters. Been married to Sue. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary in May. We mentioned the grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I have my educational background. I've got a BS in marketing, St. Louis University, MBA from Belmont University here in Nashville, and a JD degree from National School of Law, also here in Nashville. Was in the swimming pool construction and renovation business for 28 years. Towards the end of those years, I went to night school to get the MBA and the JD degree. I practiced law for 8 years, and then I was appointed a magistrate to the General Sessions. We call it night court, where I'm practicing now. I've been there for 19 years. As far as choice theory goes, I'm not a therapist, of course, but I do. I think I really live choice therapy. I hope I do. I try to practice it daily in all my different relationships. Of course, the relationships I had when I was in the pool business are different from what I'm doing now as far as a magistrate working with people who've made some rather poor choices, quite frankly, and have some responsibility to pay for that. So my discussion with them is quite different from what it would be when I was in the swimming pool business, or the same relationship I have with my children and friends and family. It's really difficult with what I'm doing now is can't speak a whole lot to the suspect in front of me in night court, because at that point they're really not represented. So and all I'm giving them is information, which is basic, my opinion, choice theory. All you can do is give information. So I'm giving them very, very basic information. We do have some discussions, and I try to be as uplifting, but very respectful, I hope, and try to take some of the stress of what they're going through with their questions, and trying to be a little bit more calm about it and listen to what they need. I think one of the best things I've ever come out of choice theory is that it made me a good listener. I think that's a huge part of, for me, any good relationship is they got to be a good listener. And I think I try to practice that all the time in all my different relationships. I guess there's no specifics to get into as far as being a night court magistrate. It's all criminal law. Anybody who's arrested in Davidson County will have to come before one of the magistrates, and we tell them what their bail is and what their charge is, answer any questions they may have. We try to keep them from trying to say too much since they are unrepresented at the time they're there, no attorneys or anything there. So that's a little bit difficult, and you really want to say some things that you to try to make them feel better, but you just got to have to be careful. You got to answer their questions, give them information, and sort of go from that point then and there. Of course, other relationships with the kids and stuff like that is entirely different. I could spend more time, practice more of the axioms, I guess, or the sayings of choice theory. Other thing I think I got out of choice theory that I use all the time is my quality world. I think we all have this quality world. It was different when I was working in the pool business I had. It was really improved my sales ability. Not that I'm marketing, making more money, but what I was giving the people what they really wanted. They didn't know what they really wanted because nobody ever owned a pool at the time. So I had to learn from listening and asking, good questions about what they wanted, and try to, I know this may sound silly, but try to get into what was their quality world as far as their perception of the swimming pool in their home and stuff like that. So
Well,
I really think that was a good benefit for me.
Yeah, it's a big investment, a swimming pool.
Yes, and it's a lifelong. You don't just build a pool and get rid of it. It's something you keep till you move, or you could, I guess you could tear them apart, but it would break my heart to think somebody tear a pool apart. So it's such a good thing to have in your yard. But so that, that kind of quality world for those folks versus like when I'm working now, I could never get into what a quality world of one of the suspects and what they're dealing with. So that's sort of a challenge. And, I'm judging not them. This sounds silly, but I'm not judging them. I have to judge their behavior. I can't judge them. I don't know them. I don't have that opportunity. So I do judge their behavior as far as why they're having to sit in front of me and we go over all what's going on. I have another thing that I learned a great deal in choice theory was my perception of what's going on. I think that's another great benefit that I try to, lean back on or try to pull out when I'm having these conversations with people in the criminal system, or even, with my kids and stuff like that. What my perceptions are may be considered a bias in some places. I don't know. Some biases, a lot of people may think discriminatory or something like that, but it's also safety issues and things of that sort. But trying to get in their perceived world, of course, it's ridiculous. I'm got to keep on what my perceived world, and a lot of people say your perceptions are not reality. I'm afraid I just sort of disagree. I think my perceptions are my reality. So I try to keep all that in check. I'm not sure how much where I'm going with all this, and I don't mean to ramble, but what any questions, or I don't know how y'all handle.
Oh, we can talk back and forth, or you can people can ask questions as they go along.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're sitting on the bench and the folks are in front of you, your perception also includes the law. So your knowledge of the law and those types of things, and you're gauging it not just from your perceptions, but against your knowledge of the law and what they're there for. Is that what I'm understanding you're saying?
Right. Well, that's really the hard and fast rules. Those are somewhat set in stone type of thing, but I also, my perceptions change all the time. Any new information I get, any new type of relationships or memories or experiences, my perceptions are changing. When I first started as the magistrate, I had a huge change in my perception of of the real world, or my real world, I didn't realize how naive I was about what actually goes on in the world.
Mhm.
That all this stuff happens, and I was sort of not kept from it, but I just wasn't a part of it. So that was a real big awakening for me. And it took me a long time to sort of get over it.
Yeah.
To remember that I'm not judging these people, I'm judging their behavior. And that's a huge difference in my book. It's a sort of a fine line, but it's something I've always got to keep in mind, that I'm not trying to judge them. I've got to judge them on what they've done and try to be, cognizant of not trying to judge them as a person or something like that.
Mhm. And people join in as you wish. Wendell's got his hand up.
Oh,
Go ahead. Wendell, you're muted.
He's also on mute.
Steve, thanks for coming and being on the program here too. I like your tone of voice, your nice level, non-judgmental tone of voice. And that I can just see that carrying over in the courtroom. And there's several things that come to me. There plenty of documentation of prison riots and inmates assaulting and hurting staff and guards, corrections officers, that sort of thing, but also of them protecting the lives and the welfare of other ones. It's like, hey, there's one, I'm gonna get him. No, not him. He treated us decently. But those other son of a guns, you know, whatever you want to do with them there. Now, not every person's going to do that, but they respect a direct, honest, a lot of people do respect a direct, honest giving of information, which you focused on, and without judging. And they start to see that. And then like your attitude, they start to see that they've got choices. It was, you're here because of the choices you made. You got an opportunity to now learn some new choices and behaviors too.
Steve, a question came up about, did you take a basic training? And Steve did take a basic training with me, and then he went on. You want to tell them about that, Steve?
Well, I think we may have done that over a 3-year period. Was that it?
Yeah, and when he says we, he and his wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, both Sue and I took it together, and there was another couple. I think there were 2 other couples, and that also at the time we were going through this. One of our daughters was going through the throes of an eating disorder, and so we were trying to get a handle on that. Of course, we read all the books we possibly could. Still didn't understand what the eating disorder was. But we got into a group of parents, and which I think we were pretty good at choice theory at the time. We were still pretty young in it and still anxious and active, and we were good about listening and giving information, things like that. We we both went through the certification process. Is that what you're talking about, Lucy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We both gave our little talks down. I think it was in Melbourne, Florida, which was really, really interesting. And I'm not sure what else that.
Well, what year was that? Do you remember? You were certified?
No,
No, me either.
It
It was a long
seemed like
time
a
ago.
long time ago, but that it was. And so Sue's very much into still using choice theory also. She's great at listening, and actually a great listener. And she knows, I learned from her how to get more information out of people with using the right questions and not being, too pushy, or, don't put them in a position where they're trying to defend themselves, but just give good, honest answers. She's really good at that. I mean, learn from her, just listening about that all the time. And so we're both certified, I guess we are.
Well, yeah. And then, as you were saying, at that time, y'all were kind of almost leading a group and teaching other parents of children with eating disorders
Right.
about choice theory and how you were using it in your life. So
Yes, we, this sounds sort of braggadocious, but we really were good for that group. That the the eating disorders, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it's just hard to understand. Makes no common sense and stuff like that. So all these parents were just struggling and struggling, but honestly, they thought of Sue and I as the leaders of this group because we were just a little more calm about it. We just felt that we were heading in the right direction. We weren't getting all the answers, but we were getting the good information, and we would try to disseminate that to them. And it was a great exchange of information about what their child's going through, what our child's going through, how you're approaching it. They would always ask Sue and I, well, how do you talk to your daughter? Or some of them had some boys, and we would sit down and explain to them, or try to explain to them, listen, and you listen, and you listen. And when you have to, you'll say something just to keep, the conversation going. But it was more of giving them, our child, a voice than it was for us to try to correct what we thought we could correct, which we couldn't. So, but that choice theory was really a godsend for us when we went through all that, and we're still going through it. She's well into her recovery, but it's nothing I think that ever goes away like any addiction like that. But and there's still times when she'll come and she'll talk about it, and what little, not mishaps, but those struggles she may have and how she copes with it, and asks our advice. And so I think we were really fortunate about choice theory and going through that process.
mhm. Now, as I said in the beginning, there were 4 beautiful daughters, 2 of the first 2 twins, and then the next 2 came along, so that at one time he had 4 babies under school age.
Yep.
And 2 of the younger girls did the basic week. So it's sort of a family of choice theory that are all on the same page, which I think is interesting. Steve, the question came up in the chat. I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
And then we'll discuss it as a group. It says, in your opinion, what are the 3 biggest barriers that modern people, and especially kids and students, have trouble overcoming that prevents them from utilizing choice theory to the fullest?
Or say that again.
What are the 3 biggest barriers that people have in overcoming, that they have to overcome to understand and utilize choice theory? It's a big question. But
well, I mean,
go
you
ahead.
mean as far as in the criminal system, or
I think anyway, Steve.
daily?
Mhm.
I guess it's,
Well, the most obvious one, of course, is that it's an internal locus of control psychology, and people are thinking external.
well, my first answer was a lot of it, or for me anyway, was it really increased my self-awareness. I read in a book one time, I'm a big do-it-yourselfer type person, and back before YouTube, if you want to learn how to fix something, you either tore it apart and figured it out, or you buy a magazine or a book. And I remember I bought this book one time that was about appliance and small engine repair. I wanted to fix something, and I just bought this book, and I never read the forwards or anything like that in the beginning, but I happened to open it up. Right in the middle of this, like the first few pages was, in order to fix something, you need to know how it works. and I read that and it was like an epiphany. I thought at the time, I don't recall, but I must have been going through some kind of a personal problem or worrying about something. And I thought, well, if I'm going to fix Steve, Steve needs to know how Steve works. So that started my my self-awareness type thing. And I think for me, choice theory was a total learning, a self-awareness of how I behave. I'm not going to change the way anybody else behaves. If I want to change anything, I got to change it myself or go onward some other direction. So that, I think, and self-awareness is a scary thing. People may not want to get too involved in what, or they don't want to recognize what kind of things are going on. So I think that's probably the biggest obstacle, I think, for me would have been that.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was sort of a little bit over that obstacle when we started choice theory. The other is, I think, just taking the time to digest this. It's a lot of, for me, it was a lot of information, and it was so new to me that it took me a while to sort of digest it and really understand it. I mean, I had to look over it, like the background, I think that's the quality world picture where the information comes in, you process it, good or bad, more information. That took me a while to really understand that. But when I started to, again, that was another thing that makes sense. I mean, I can follow that now, and it helps me to understand how I behave. So I can maybe be better example to somebody else of in the same position that you learn from your past experiences and some of your memories, and you add all this new stuff in, and then your perception changes. I guess that's what it is. Understanding your perception, that might be the second largest obstacle I had. Understanding my perceptions and where they come from and how they evolve and change. I have to think about a third one. I feel
Those
pretty
are
good. I answered two of them.
That's good, two answers for sure.
Yeah, and that is a good question. Gosh, that's a real deep thinker though.
Yeah, that must be Maria, I think. Thank you, Maria, for that question. And Wendell's got one.
Steve, I just wrote down verbatim what you said. What a great title. All of us that do training and maybe present at a conference or something like that. What's the title of your presentation? Well, you want something kind of catchy that will get their interest to start with, too. And look at this, do it yourself, fix up. And in order to fix something, you've got to understand how it works. And then that's the title of a choice theory presentation there too. That's marvelous. Thank you for that. Also, look up, if you haven't done it before, Twinsburg, Ohio, Twinsburg, Ohio, an hour south of Cleveland. Every year they have an international twins, triplets, quad festival, the first full weekend in August. Look at that too. Somebody told me, Nancy Buck told me that Sam Buckholz told her that reality therapy, for those of us that are kind of counselors, is what we do, and then choice theory is why we do it. And you've just hit it right on the nail, right on the head there, understanding what we do. And one of the things that struck me again about what you just said is choice theory is deceptively simple seeming. And there'll be a lot of people who are looking for some in-depth psychological jargon, projection and this and that and whatever. And so they want to kind of poo-poo it, as you see, and yet it's so unbelievably applicable to people. But it does take time for it to kind of get, osmosis to get in the system. Well, you're doing a great. I've written down a number of things you've said, and I'm going to use them and give you credit.
Well, thank you for your comment. Anything else?
I liked when you were talking about how it helped you in the world of sales with your pool work. Once you understood from your perception their quality world, I think I heard you say your sales increased.
Well, this is a great area for pools, and it's a great business. But yes, well, I built better pools
Better.
because it was what they wanted, not what my perception of what they needed, of what I would like to build, what I think would look great in their yard, you know, with their house and everything else. And so I got over that a little bit and got into what their perceptions of their quality world, or what the pool was for them, what it meant for them, not for me. I think and probably most males are like this, I hope, but instead of, I jump right in to fix something rather than trying to understand it. Well, I can fix it. I can do this. That's what it was when Sue and I went through our first thing with the eating disorders. We read books. We knew how we could fix this. We knew how to work it out, but we didn't. We learned quickly that we couldn't do that. And I think that's so the choice theory gave me another avenue to sort of understand where I was coming from, which wasn't what my client needed necessarily. I had some great advice, some good information, and I could help steer them into what I think they may have wanted by asking some questions. But if I was going in the wrong direction, then we would go where they wanted to go. But I was always bringing up things like the maintenance of it, things like that, things that they weren't considering. And choice theory just gave me the sort of the basic idea of how to ask good questions and how to listen to what they're saying, and not what I want them to say or what I was expecting them to say. If that makes sense, I guess.
I just want to repeat what he said earlier, or he didn't say it, but I don't want you to miss this part of the story. He was a father of 4 children under 6 in a pool business, going to law school and graduate school, and self-reflecting and learning a whole new way of looking at life. So that was a busy gentleman at the time.
Very fortunate.
Fortunate gentleman.
Very
Busy
fortunate.
and fortunate. Yeah.
Steve, I have a question. I wonder why judges, attorneys who have a doctorate degree in jurisprudence and pharmacists who have a doctorate degree in pharmacology, they don't get called doctor. But they have a comparable degree to all the other doctorates.
Yeah. Well, attorneys are called honorable, which is a very loosely term, I think, for some attorneys, quite frankly.
What's the word?
You're called the honorable.
Oh, the
Esquire,
honorable.
something like that. So we have our little titles, deserve it or not. But it's a jurisprudence, a doctor of jurisprudence is what the JD is all about. So, and then you take the law boards and pass law and all that, the test and all that.
Yeah. I've started calling the pharmacist Dr. So-and-so, and they're always surprised because they operate really informally, like first name, you know, who's the pharmacist? So Joanne is the pharmacist. And so I say, hi, Dr. Joanne. It does a double take, you know. Yeah.
So I have somewhat of a question in what you're doing. I understand it's night court. A lot of external control going on. And so I'm a therapist going into court. Prosecutors, the judges are all using external control. I'm an internal control therapist, and we butt heads. And I'm wondering if you can speak on any of that dynamic.
Well, I think you're going to fight a losing battle, quite frankly. All, particularly judges, and there are a lot of good people who are attorneys and judges. I'm not saying that, but if to give you an example of why you're fighting losing battle, when a judge says, "My courtroom, my this, my that," well, it's not really their courtroom. They're presiding in this courtroom, and it's people's courtroom. I mean, but it's that kind of external mentality that you're going to find, and it's the same way with attorneys. They say things like, "Well, I won this case, or I won that case." Well, they didn't win anything. Their clients. But this is the way I think, and I think some of this may be choice theory, that I'm not so externally controlled anymore like I probably was. And I'm not trying to cut down attorneys or judges. I'm very proud that I'm an attorney. Well, I say, I'll take this back. I'm not so proud that I'm an attorney. I'm very proud that I have graduated and passed the bar. That was, I think, quite an accomplishment for me, and I'm very proud of that. I don't brag people that I'm an attorney. Some attorneys have a pretty bad rap, and some of it's very deserved. But that as far as the external control, I think that's the battle you're going to run into. And those are very simple ideas about the external idea of how the court system works. It's all punishment, and you got to do this, you got to do that, and that's a paradigm that I don't know that will ever really. I think it's come a great deal, and maybe it can get better, I'm sure, but it's going to be a tough paradigm to break, I think.
Much to the surprise of a lot of people who early on got connected with William Glasser, the application of, at that time, reality therapy, and then now choice theory and reality therapy, it becomes relatively easy compared to many other psychological presenting issues, because there's so much leverage. The person comes to me as a probation officer and is fussing about this crummy program and all the rules we've got, what have you. And I say, well, I heard you were happy as could be when the judge gave you probation rather than prison. Which would you, and you go to the one, would you rather be in prison or here or on this crummy program? But you give information, and quickly they kind of tune down. And I like, I've stole this from Glasser. As a probation officer, it's my job is not, your job is not. We use that in education too, the teacher and parents. My job is not, your is. But as your probation officer, my job is to go to bat for you. Is to report that you're working the program, and that you're showing up, you're looking for jobs, blah, blah, blah. My job is also to report when you don't do those things. I'd rather report that you're working the program, making an effort, showing up, participating in groups. And then if they ask my opinion, I'm gonna say, well, maybe he deserves to be off of probation a little bit earlier. I'll go to bat for you. But I want to be for you and not against you. It's so simple in that way. Now I don't have control over the decision they make, but that part of it there is just falls right out.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn, you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
No. Oh.
No. Okay. Steve, did you have some more you were going to tell us about your family? And
About my family?
And using reality therapy and choice theory?
No, she's talking to Steve.
You started that way, and then I sort of asked a question that moved you off.
She may have said your name, but I'm saying she.
Well,
um,
I guess we're all getting up in age. I've got quite a few sisters and brothers in their 80s, and the youngest of all of us is 63 or 64. We get
Did you
together
say
quite often.
Did you say there were 16
16,
16 children in your family?
right.
I've
And-
been saying all these years it was 14 and it's 16.
Mhm. Well, and we try to get together a lot more now. You know, we're all raising families, but we're also busy with children. Like I have about 68 nieces and nephews, and well into the over 150 probably great nieces and nephews. So our family is huge, and we would meet, but very for short terms. Now that we're getting older and we're grandparents and we brush the kids away, we're spending more time with each other. And we just spent some time in Florida as a group. And my focus now is try to understand them a little more and how I tell you the truth, how they perceive my mother and father. I feel like there were 3 different families. The first 5 really got us off to a great start. The second 5 picked up on that and even improved. And I'm in the third 5. Some of us did better than others, but we're all still good folks. But so I come up with these questions and these games about asking personal questions and how it reflects on your growing up and how my father was to this kind of stuff. So they're all positive questions, no negative stuff. And I'm trying to understand more about family background. My father would treat parents, my mother, both and father, of course, treated the first 5 much differently than they did the last 5.
Yeah.
And so the first 5 got a lot more time, I think, with my parents than I did, because there's still just tons. And my father works literally 6.5 days a week. My mother, of course, cooked all day long. She sewed dresses, wedding dresses, prom dresses, and stuff like that. We didn't have much money. My father had a great living, earned a lot of money, but he had to spread it out pretty far with all those children and having to feed and clothe and all that. So we weren't rich, but we certainly weren't poor. And we all feel like we were just unbelievably rich in family. So, and we're still, it's an amazing family. I can just talk about my family. Sue's family is the same way. She's one of 6. They're close. They're all, we still talk. We don't argue. We have fun. We talk about our lives and stuff like that. So, some blessings are just so unbelievable. And I've had more than my fair share. But I know I still use my choice theory stuff when I talk to my sisters, and a lot of times if they come to with me with problems about or situations about their grandkids that might be toying with drugs or in the legal system, and then I try to give them some important information in a positive a way, get them to ask questions that they're afraid to ask. I don't know if you understand that, but I try to, and that's just a special feeling. But I do think I don't get too much involved in that, but that might be get into too much personal stuff from some of my sisters and brothers that may not want that brought about. But they do come to me with a lot of stuff like that. And I think maybe because I'm good at, quite frankly, at listening from choice theory, my choice theory.
A question came up in the chat. Did any of your siblings of the 16, any of them ever get interested in CTRT?
I don't think so. They're all very aware of it. Sue and I it did and very involved in it. But none of them
One
did.
came to a training I did once, but they didn't go into the education part of it.
Okay,
Your sister, Sally? Is Sally a sister?
no, that's a sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law, okay.
Yeah. But I don't think, no, I can't think of anybody that has.
Yeah. And how about all those grandchildren?
Well, they're, again, you're talking about being fortunate. Sue and I have had the luxury of always having small, young grandchildren at that 3 to 4 to 6 year old age when they're just wonderful. We have 2 who have graduated from college, one that's in college. Let's see, one's a junior in high school, one's a 8th grader, a 7th grader, and then we have one that's starting in 5-year-old preschool. So we've always had a little bitty grandchild, which are just spectacular. I mean, the older ones are nice too. They're cute and we love them, but you just can't beat when they're 4 and 5 years old and they just love you like there's no tomorrow. You just can't beat it. So we've been always fortunate that way with having, and now we're starting to have great grandkids. And so we're just going to probably, hopefully be lucky the rest of our lives and always have something like that to love and to be loved with. Bye.
And will you tell folks a little bit about your wife, Sue?
Sue, let's see. Well, in Nashville, I went to an all-boys school, Father Rhyme High School, and Sue went to an all-girls school, St. Bernard Academy. She came to, we went to the same grade school. She came from Evansville in 6th or 7th grade. Of course, I didn't pay attention to her back then. Boys, I wasn't interested in girls back then. But Sue was a cheerleader and I was captain of the football team. So we started dating in our senior year. We continued to date. We got married. She went to, there was a new dental hygiene program in Western Kentucky. She went through that. She was able to complete that in 2 years. I was at St. Louis University at that time. We got married. She is unbelievably talented. She's so artistic. When she was sort of forced to retire, she loved dental hygiene. Oh, and she was good at it. Oh, people loved her. She was tough. When she cleaned your teeth, you knew your teeth were clean because she worked it hard. But she had a couple of mishaps with injuries. The last one was, I think she broke her elbow. And the rehab was going to be 6 months or longer. And she just said she was going to have to retire. So she retired and she picked up this new hobby of baking and decorating cookies. And they are phenomenal. I mean, the girl has got more artistic talent than she doesn't realize it. And she just painted a picture one time and she wants me to throw it away and I will not throw it away. I mean, it was freehand and it is so good. She's just very artistic, super kind to she loves the grandkids, she's called Marmy. They all love her. And she practices with these kids about being, making good choices. We both do. And being responsible for your choices that you make and thinking about what your choices are and when you do make choices. So I think the more I think about this, and I haven't really given this a lot of thought, we're pretty much ingrained in our choice theory background, to tell you the truth. Both of us are. Yeah. It's really been so beneficial and I'm sure will continue to be beneficial.
Steve, I've been knowing you for 49 minutes. That's all. Steve and I've never met before. Okay. And so I'll tell you why your siblings come come to talk with you and ask you about things.
Okay,
Because you listen, you listen, you listen. You're non-judgmental. You're a kind person. It's safe. We had a good workshop at the conference. A person talked about developing a psychologically safe environment for people. And so it's immediately apparent to me, it makes sense that people would come to you. Even at work, I can see that too. Check that one off. Sometime or another, when you get a chance, pick up a book on Adlerian psychology. They are the go-to people on birth order of kids and the dynamics there. And then thirdly, this is a rhetorical question. If I can imagine that it could be very difficult, could be, but you choose not to let it be, to be a person like yourself or Lucy in Tennessee, in Nashville especially, where the world around you is external control. The shooting in the school recently and the laws that are being passed, to see all that going on around you, more so in Tennessee than a lot of places. And yet that's got to be totally at odds with your own kind of thinking about things. But it's a challenge.
well, we all have those kind of challenges, I'm afraid, wherever you live. It's not it's an external world. I mean, external control world. And there, you just pick out the pieces that you can have an impact, not, or an influence, not control them, but, have a positive impact on people. And that's sort of a goal.
I liked what I heard when you said that you and your wife are ingrained in choice theory and using it with your kids and grandkids, and now your great grandkids. It's a lifelong skill, that is for sure, once you get it and start using it. I love that. Thank you.
I'm going to give Sue, his wife, one more credit.
Okay.
In 2010, when I was doing the conference in Nashville, a few of you were there, and Sue and her 31 volunteers sort of ran that conference for me. I sat back and let her go, and she did all the wonderful things that happened in that conference. She was responsible for them, the cakes at the dinner and the decorations, and everything came out of Sue's artistic mind. So I'm always indebted to her for that. So send those regards to her,
I
Steve.
will. She is an organizer and a good leader, in that she gets something done without you knowing that it was her idea. And so your whole heart isn't because you're not told to do it. You're doing it because this is what needs to be done. And Sue knows how to lead people like that and give them that kind of direction.
Yeah.
And not to be the boss necessarily, but to keep it organized. She's quite the phenomenal woman.
She got good skills with that, with having all those babies at the same time.
Yeah.
She had to do it, right? Well, Steve, I know you can't believe this, but the time has come for us to kind of wrap up and close up. Do you have some closing words, or does anybody have any closing comments or questions?
Steve, a group of your colleagues calls me up and says, I got your name from Steve H, in Nashville, and he's got, and we've got a retreat. We're all magistrates, we're all blah, blah, blah. And we're looking for a guest speaker to come and talk to us, maybe about 2 hours. What would you recommend that any one of us might say to colleagues of yours as an opening kind of intro in 2 hours or less?
Well, you have to be real careful that you don't tune them out right off the bat. Again, my criminal justice system is an extremely external world. And so the idea of, butting that or going against that and saying, choice theory with internal and all that, it'd be a hard sell. So you'd have to be darn careful how you started it. And so they wouldn't turn you out immediately.
Yeah, okay.
I guess, and then it would be good luck. Just, it would be a hard, you just have, if you don't get off the right foot, I think that tune you out in a heartbeat. And again, I don't mean to be so negative about the criminal court system or judges or attorneys, but that is just the way it is. And
Yeah.
The truth of the world.
Yes.
Yep.
mhm.
For me, I would love to see reform in the criminal justice world with RT or choice theory, reality therapy. I just think they're so ingrained with the external that it would probably never happen.
Well, let me say one thing though, with way, and because I know one person who does it in the school system, and Lucy knows him. I think that's such a good start. The school system, and I think it can grow into businesses, and actually it is quite useful in a lot of business situations. But there's going to be a lot of reform. It's going to be slow in the criminal justice system, and it should be. But it's going to be slow. There's a lot of hard heads out there not before. But I honestly think the way the Glasser stuff is going through some school system, I think that's going to expand. And once people are educated about it, then it just continues to grow and grow and grow in different areas. So I don't think it's just going to stay in the school system myself, or in your field of therapists. So I think from therapists, I think it went into schools, and now it can expand in other areas. That's my thought.
Yeah, it has to be useful for it to be ingrained, like you talked about with you and Sue. It has to be useful. So probably the answer to Wendell's question is, I've got a really useful thing for you.
That's a good word.
Well, that would be a great start.
Yeah.
A better start than, by the way, you're wrong, we're right.
Yeah. That would be a much better introduction.
Not too long ago, I asked one
Show
of
you the way. Get him out of here.
Yeah.
Steve, you might have learned from Lucy over the years. In Oklahoma, a woman was doing, a number of our colleagues have done stuff in corrections, but she was doing things inside prisons. Anyway, get to the punchline, she set up in motion and an entire group of inmates, many of them lifers, okay, went through the training. Maybe a couple dropped out, but went through the whole 5-step training and got certified. And and they had 5 different of the colleagues like Lucy and others that came in there and did the training and the follow-on, and there were video about it. It was just marvelous. And of course, then they said on the video, if I had known this before I ever got whatever, I wouldn't be here in prison today. You know, a way of living their life and making choices. And you're right, it's infinite, the possibilities of the positive impact. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. And there's some thank yous from in the chat room as well. And I look forward to seeing y'all at lunch tomorrow.
Well, I want to thank y'all. I didn't realize how much that choice theory is in part of my life, and this forced me to sort of recognize some of that and appreciate it. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate this opportunity. I didn't mean for this to work this way, but I didn't realize how much I do use choice theory and how positive effect it has on Sue and I and all of our relationships. I think I really have enjoyed it.
Well, we were happy to have you with us.
Yeah, I was excited.
And Mike, I'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Bye, David.
And
Bye,
Steve
Barbara Lombardi.
and Dave. David, you came on late. Do we know you? Have our
Yeah,
paths
I'm on
crossed?
I'm on the mailing list, but normally I have attended the Wednesdays,
Uh-huh.
you know, with Mona, but I got done with the meeting, so I saw that it popped up and I'm like, oh, well, let's just see what's happening. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
caught the tail end.
Well, join us. We're the fourth Tuesday of each month, and we have a different featured guest each week. And I think the next one will be an interesting one. It will be Dr. Kylie Calloway. I have to say that, I have to think as I say that because I'll twist the syllables around. He's going to talk to us. He just became certified last week with me in St. Louis, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about, he's a minister, pastor, and chaplain, and he's going to talk about how much his scriptures and choice theory match, and some of the concepts of that. So I think it'll be an interesting presentation. Again, Steve, thank you so much for being with us today. And everybody that joined us, this will be recorded and you can tell your friends and neighbors to go check it out at the William Glasser website.
Yeah.
Thank you for today.
August 22nd, our next one. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
And the recording.
I'm trying to get it to stop.